All right, I've got a packed house tonight for this episode of The Average. I'm excited. We have Bryce back with us tonight.
Yes, sir.
Got Rich, if you remember Rich from the Invisible Man episode that we did during 13 Nights of Halloween.
What's going on?
And then Rich brought a friend. So, John.
How you doing?
Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We are talking Dune 2 tonight. This is no surprise, it's in the title. All right, so without further ado, we'll kick it off with the first category, and that is the story. What do we think of the story, gentlemen?
So much better than part one. I mean,
okay, let's slow down, bud.
See,
These are these takes that he just fires them out there, just reckless abandon.
Let me justify this a little bit.
Okay.
Seeing part one in theaters, I was actually with John. I was with a group of friends. The whole movie, everybody was hyping this thing up. I go to see it, and I'm watching it. I'm like, I'm just not into this. There's a giant worm. I don't know what's going on.
It's pretty phallic worm, too.
But by the end of it, like when he's having those visions and everything, and I want to talk about those later because that's important. I was thinking like part two could be amazing if they do it right. Like part one is all set up storylines and things like that. And that's kind of why I went into part two with such an open mind. But
I won't dogpile on Rich just because it comes a bit it becomes a bit too natural for me after living with him for however many years.
I am with you, Rich, though. When I watched the first one, partially it could have been because of streaming. It came out COVID times, and I watched it on Max instead of going to the theater.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. I was bored. I was bored by it. I'll be honest. I was very bored, and I was like, it looked pretty, but I didn't really care for the rest of it.
See, thank you. Yes.
Okay. So I did my rewatch of it before going to the second one, and I actually appreciate the first movie a heck of a lot more, even before I saw part two. So sitting down again and watching it, kind of already having seen it once, diving in, we're continuing that story, and I realized how much setup part one was. It gave us all of the information we needed to enjoy part two.
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of like we have from the inception. I mean, this guy, how do you pronounce his name? Denis Villeneuve?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Right. Yeah, Dennis. He's been from all the interviews and stuff I've seen about him. He's had this movie in his head since he read the book. Like he's been storyboarding it since he was a teenager, So he had like for sure a singular vision coming into it. Just watching the first part with Rich, I was entertained. I just was lost. They do a pretty good job. This is upon rewatch, watching it on HBO. I got an appreciation because I could actually understand what was going on. But you can see that he really viewed part one to set up the pieces for part two, and it was nonstop execution, payoff. So I mean, the first movie I think is, I don't know if you guys did a review of that as well and what the review scores. I'd be interested. For me, it was a solid 8 movie. Visually amazing. The soundtrack with Hans Zimmer. Obviously, so many great parts, good acting, but it just, whatever it was missing, this part two had it in spades.
Yeah.
Yeah.
John, I remember your reaction after that first one in the car. I was like, what'd you think? And you're like, it was all right.
I was like, it was pretty good. I said it was pretty good. It was all right.
Yeah,
you know?
Bryce,
And you were laughing. He started laughing the second that the Baron would do anything. Like,
Yeah, I didn't understand the bad guy.
the Baron starts floating, and this dude in the theater starts laughing. He's like expecting it. He thinks it's being like played for comedic effect.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Bryce,
Yeah.
I can't remember. I know we didn't record an episode.
I thought we
about
did. Did we
part
not?
one.
Man,
We
I
didn't
could
do
have
an
sworn we
episode.
did. We did. We did do one.
Over Dune part one?
I thought we did. Maybe
No.
we didn't. Okay, anyway, I'll let you look that up while I talk here. I guess I'll touch a little bit on the first one. I don't want to. I'll try not to spend too much time because I could ooze about that movie all day. I'm in the same boat. I had no idea what Dune was about. That was the first time I had ever heard of it. I just remember watching. I think it was actually it was Jeremy Johns talking about Dune, how it's like one of his like favorite movies coming up in the year, and he's like, "Oh, this is like the Godfather of sci-fi." I was like, "I thought that was Star Wars, but I guess Dune is like a big deal." And I was like, "I'm like Tim, I was like, I won't go see it in theaters, but I'll watch it day one, just because I got no plans." And I think that's my
lockdown.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're in lockdown. Who cares?
Good times.
And I think that honestly, that was my biggest regret in life, was just not going and seeing that in theaters. Because when I tell you I was floored watching that movie, I can't remember the last time I felt that way watching a movie for the first time. I was in just amazement of everything.
For the first part.
Yeah, first part one.
Wow.
I love part one. I think it's a phenomenal, perfect movie. I think the only thing I was one score off of a perfect, basically, and it was the music. And I think I might have been wrong on the music, honestly. I think the music, after rewatching it before seeing two, it was perfect.
Okay,
honestly.
we're gonna get into it in this one, but like rewatching part one, the music in part one is fantastic.
It's so good.
Like
It's
there's
so good.
bagpipes in it at one point.
Yeah, and the House Atreides theme is all bagpipes. Yeah.
So good. Yep.
You can really tell. I don't know if you guys know about. It's not even really like a secret at all. But Hans Zimmer, you'll see a movie like what's coming out right now, like a Kung Fu Panda movie will come out and it says Hans Zimmer score, and 15 other movies, and you're like, how does this guy even stop working? It's because he has a team of people that he basically allows to do the work for him, and he puts his name on it. That's kind of how it works out. So you'll be watching some animated kids movie with score by Hans Zimmer, and it'll just be kind of generic, whatever. And you'll be like, oh, he really fell off. But no, he just basically, he just picks different projects that he actually cares about. And then he just goes all out. And obviously you can tell with Dune, he went all out.
And you know how I could tell? Because in this, we're not even on the music category yet.
We're not even talking about D2. We're talking about D1.
We're still on story.
Yeah, so I don't know how this works. I'm just splurting.
So the story, the story for me in this film was I had to remind myself that the similarities I see in part two and in the whole movie itself, considering part one and part two being a single story, many of these things that are happening were the foundation for things that came later. So this book was written in the 70s. And so a lot of sci-fi after that emulated Dune.
Yeah.
And so I had to go back and
I've seen like the tail end of the 60s, I think, right?
Was it?
Yeah,
it's
even before the 70s.
Ago. Yeah. And so I had to remind myself that like this was, and I saw somebody else put it out there and it's accurate, that this is the Lord of the Rings of sci-fi. What Lord of the Rings did for fantasy, Dune did for sci-fi.
I'll give you that.
And I don't think, I've seen a lot of people comparing the two, and I don't think that's a fair comparison. I'm just going to get that out there right now. I don't think that's fair. Certainly. But I definitely understand the significance. And I had a moment when I was scoring this, when I was like, is this story a 4? Because in some regards, it's the Arthurian legend. You know, it's your savior rising up to free the people and he's got his posse around him. He's got the the blue water. I can't remember what that's called.
The water of life.
Yeah, as his Excalibur. If he survives that, you
One
know,
piss.
he is the chosen one. It's the chosen one story. But Dune goes so much further than that in creating a rich world, a rich history. It's like Game of Thrones. And well, Game of Thrones ripped it off essentially with the houses and the political intrigue and all of that, because George R.R. Martin has no original ideas. That's why he can't finish the last book.
Jeez. Whoa. Wow. Jeez. So I'm just coming into something obviously that's been fucking brewing on this podcast.
But yeah, I struggled for a little bit. I was like, is this a 4 or is this a 5? And I had to remind myself that this is foundational. This is a 5. This story, while it might be that savior, that reluctant Messiah, this laid the foundation for those stories to come years down the road. Like, this was foundational for the next however many decades.
Oh, yeah.
So that's like Star Wars came after Dune.
Oh, for sure.
You can look at the similarities with Tatooine.
Yes.
With, why am I blanking on them? It's what's the name of the planet?
Arrakis.
Arrakis. Yes. Thank you.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Just seeing that. And even so after the movie, and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself right now, but I kind of looked ahead to what like kind of goes on in the next book. I think it's Dune Messiah is what it's called. Yeah. And people are comparing Paul Atreides' story not as a hero, but more so as like the Anakin Skywalker. And that's where I kind of want to bring up to you guys. And if I'm getting too far ahead, clearly is. Yeah. Is he the hero or is he just the protagonist? I think he starts off as the hero of not wanting to lead the people because he sees the visions of what it's going to bring, but he ultimately falls to that. And you can see it with Chani, or Chani. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
How like she loved him for who he was, fighting for the people and not being this Messiah, this savior. And you can totally see that towards the end of the film. And I think one thing that's not getting talked about enough is that in Dune Part 1, there's a vision where he like looks into the future and he's fighting in battle and he turns towards the camera and his face is directly in line with the camera. And in this second one, it's the same scene, but it's Chani.
Yeah.
And nobody is talking about that.
Yeah, I love that visual callback. It was great.
Rich cool just also bridged right into our character category very smoothly.
I will say one last thing for the story. Is I think that the first part, Denis Villeneuve, he kind of had the balls to not try to do too much extra with the first part. I mean, obviously there was, a lot of fanfare and all that stuff in the first part. It's not like it's a completely boring film, but it's when you go back onto it, everything in the second part makes the first part better and vice versa. So like more than any, like you see a lot of times part 1, part 2 in movies, they make another part just to spread it out and make more money. But he couldn't have had part 2 be as well of a story, as well told and as satisfying without setting everything up in the first part. So I think it's like, it's basically like going, the first part is basically, I think, the first half of the book. So it's like going through half a book and be like, like I'll see how this goes. And the second part just kind of brings the hammer down.
I do after watching the second part, I think part 1 was risky. It definitely, you probably lost some casual fans on part 1, people who don't know the story of Dune, maybe not, going expecting a new take on Star Wars, whatever. And they watch that and they're like we've said, I was bored the first time. Second time, I appreciated it far more. But I do think after watching this, that part 1 was risky because you realize how much part 1 was really not a self-contained story. No. And I think that's why it rubbed me wrong the first time.
100%. I said this to Rich when we were walking out. I said, it felt like the pilot, the first episode to a whole series. Yeah. That ending with the worm and the guy riding the worm. And it's like, you're just like, It really was not an ending.
No,
And
the
not-
ending rubbed me wrong. And I think
100%.
that is- that
It
is
detracted it for me, and I
Yep.
wasn't. And what I'd seen, I'd been interested, but it wasn't like I was dying to
Yes.
see the second part and all that stuff.
Once he and his mom
Um,
crashed in the desert, I was done with part one. I was bored.
Yeah,
I was like, this is ridiculous.
Pacing wise, the
Yeah.
first one had a lot of issues, which it's hard to think about how you'd get out around that.
I want to see, I've heard it mentioned like a super cut being released of just edited as one film, and I want to see that. I want to see it.
Yeah,
It'd be
Snyder cut.
It'd be a heck of a sit through. It's like nearly 6 hours, but
Yeah,
I'll give it a shot. So Rich bridged into the character, and I think you mentioned Anakin, did you not? Or was I thinking it? Yeah.
No, I didn't. Yeah.
It definitely makes me realize how like emo junior high Anakin's transition to villain was in the prequel trilogy, because this is a very similar story.
I was gonna say,
it's not the story of Luke. It's definitely the story of Anakin, but
100%.
this came first. That you are the chosen one, kind of whole idea, and this is done so much better. His transition into that. And you mentioned, is he the villain or is he the good guy?
See, in the movie, and I'm sorry if I cut you off, you can keep going. But I really think the director, Denis, really wanted him to be the protagonist. But
I'm also refer to him as DV.
DV?
DV.
I think he wanted him to stay the protagonist, stay kind of the hero, but just give like a sense of like this isn't truly who he was or who he wanted to be. And that's really what he showcased with Chani's character, because Chani you can see changing throughout the film. Like towards the end when he starts gaining his power, like just her facial expressions and everything like that. And even
your typical Zendaya facial expressions.
Yes, yeah.
We've seen him as MJ, we've seen him in
Well, how about at the
I think she was all right.
I think she was good. Yeah.
She was not as bad as I've seen people say she was in this. Yeah. There were a couple moments that seemed I love her. This was the first movie that I've seen where I wasn't like, she's fantastic. I actually think her performance in The Greatest Showman was more compelling than it was in this.
I will give you that.
I haven't seen that one.
Oh, and I don't know what that was. But I don't think this is one of my problems with this film overall. This is that I didn't know who to root for. There were moments when I am rooting for Paul, because he is that kind of reluctant messiah. And I'm like, yes, go save these people. But by the end of the movie, he has chosen to send these people into a bigger conflict, a greater war that's going to cost far more lives. And so who is the villain here? Is it the Emperor? Is it Paul? Is it the Harkonnens?
Right.
It's the same problem I have with Game of Thrones, where there's no clear like hero, good guy.
What about the Emperor to begin with? Because this whole story revolves around, didn't the Emperor send the Harkonnens
the Emperor is definitely the bad guy.
To end the House of Atreides.
The Emperor to me was just when I was looking at everything since our scores, I put a 50 out of 50, and not just out of like I was stewing on it.
Christopher Walken as the Emperor.
Yeah, and he's great. It's just kind of like how Johnny was in the first part. He just does not have anything really to do. Christopher Walken does it like he had. I mean, what is it? Maybe 5 to 7 lines in the whole thing, and you don't really get. You can see practically why the Emperor is doing what he's doing. House Atreides is becoming more powerful, and people they're getting more respect and renown than he is, which threatens his power, and then like that aligns with the Ben Gesserit. Their, Paul to them is something that's gone out of control, and so like they say in the first part, they have other people, or what are they? I'm thinking of. I keep saying contestant in my head, but other possible. Well, right? No, for who their Lisa and El Galb guy is going to be,
You know way more about Dune than I do.
Give me 1 second.
Yeah, I watched the movie, but I don't know any of these names. That's where I think like this gets very Game of Thrones-ish. There's all these different houses and there's all this different political intrigue that's going on. And I've never been one for political intrigue. I think it's boring. But I do think DV did a great job in this film. The only problem is I didn't know who some of the characters were. They would just pop up, pop in. I don't know their significance overall. Right. There is a part of me that thinks, it's been mentioned that Dune is unadaptable. It is unfilmable. And everybody's been praising DV for accomplishing it. And he did an incredible job. But I also think this deserves the Game of Thrones treatment of a 10-episode hour-long or 8-episode hour-long to kind of flesh out some of those side characters, because there was a lot going on in this film. You have your main ones, Paul. What's the girl's name?
Chani.
How do you... Chani?
Chani.
Okay.
Chani.
CHA. Okay. I thought they were calling her Johnny the whole time. Yeah, you have Chani. Javier Bardem's character, Stilgar. I loved him. He was actually so I thought everybody in the first film was pretty one-dimensional, except for Jason Momoa's character.
Yes.
And part of that is, if you go back and watch the first one, Jason Momoa's character is about the only one who smiles the entire film.
Yeah.
I
remember watching Dune Part 1, and like I was bored, as I've said this, but every time Jason Momoa was on screen, I was like, wow, I like this guy, and then they kill him. Yeah. And I was like, well, what is that?
So
he had the best name by far as well out of any character.
What was his name?
Duncan, Idaho. The best name.
Absolutely cold.
It's fucking named after a fucking state that does not have to do fucking potatoes.
So
Duncan.
In the second one, I immediately appreciated how there was a levity in a lot of the characters. So
yeah, more liveliness for sure.
Yes,
more energy.
And I saw a lot more energy, more laughter, more smiles from the characters. And I think that helped me into it a little bit more. And I think part of that is definitely the setup and how much you have to set up in that first one. We don't have time to show Paul's dad sitting down being, like, oh, let's go play catch in the yard. Like, we don't have time for that in part one. Yeah. In this, we had time to sit and learn the world through these characters, and I appreciated some of that part of the character development. There was a little bit more levity in some of the characters this time.
I was gonna say he put a bit more spice into it for sure.
Spice.
When we're talking about the characters and stuff, I think for sure a bit more levity in the first part would have been. It just didn't have the same energy as this part from the get go. Obviously, it's his first try, so he was able to iterate off of the first part and see what worked and what didn't, which was very apparent on this time. But you're going back to what Rich was saying about Anakin and all that stuff in Star Wars. It kind of was a shock to me to kind of like realize that everything in Star Wars and stuff, like you were saying, Tim, is iterated off of Dune. So much of it. Even I mean, even the most iconic, the iconic shots you can put in your head of Tatooine is straight out of Arrakis.
Even the spice runners that Han Solo works with.
The smugglers. Yeah. I mean, 100%. I mean, he was the first one that really did all that, and George Lucas has said that before. It's two different stories, though. When you're comparing Star Wars to Dune, you were making more of a comparison that you maybe don't get as much enjoyment out of it as you would, or similar to like Game of Thrones, where there's political intrigue. Dune, I think among many things, what really hit in the second part was the message, the theme of the story of Dune and Paul's character. It's not a story about good guy, bad guy. I mean, you can see for yourself, like the Harkonnens, the Baron are just depraved, and only want death. Those guys they hire, the Sarkar, whatever the guys with the, deep throat voice stuff, they're just weapons. But even House Atreides, which is seemingly like the best house and the most noble and all that stuff, they're still coming in, and not that they might have much choice, but they're still coming in as an occupying force on a planet that they don't own. They do not own, with people that are already living on it. And Paul's character, it's funny watching the prequels after watching something like this, like Dune. It kind of shows, it's like Anakin, that in 3 movies, like George Lucas was not able to actually tell a story like this and have it executed in the way that he did.
It's because George is an idea man,
right? Yes. Except that his ideas are also coming off of, which is fine. The designs for so much stuff, he would just pull it from the 50s. A lot of the stuff in Star Wars, like that's all fine, and he put his own spin on it. But it is a very different story. Luke is the protagonist, but he is also the hero. Mm-hmm. That archetype had already existed before Frank Herbert wrote Dune for a long, long time.
It's like I said, it's kind of the Arthurian legend of, or the Jesus legend of you are the Messiah, you are the chosen one.
100%. But obviously with Dune, it shows kind of the dangers of believing in putting your faith in false prophets. One of the things that's specific to Dune is, and that's important, is that all the fucking old ladies, the Bene Gesserit, they have been working for thousands and thousands of years up to that point to create this Messiah. It's not something that's happening naturally or from divine power. They have been manipulating things to go their way for a long, long time.
Conniving witches.
Yeah,
literally that's what they are. They're the witches.
On that, it was like one of my favorite parts is it was like a 2-second thing, but just when the lady's like, I don't know, she's muttering something, and Timothée Chalamet just looks at her. Paul looks at her, and he's like, "Silence!" And
it's a callback to when she has him with the the Kambaja, like she's holding the thing to his neck. Needle. He has to put the hand in the box.
I thought that was so cool.
She says the same thing to him. There's so much payoff.
Well, and that's what they reminded me of. I believe it's Lady Mordred from the Arthurian legend, the evil witch.
100%.
That's definitely.
We've been telling the same stories for.
Yeah,
as long as there were stories. Yeah, really. But it's with the Bene Gesserit, they've been manipulating things to go their way. So Paul is aware of this. He knows, one of the best performances and best characters in this part, and she was in the first part, but she really got to shine here, was Lady, is it Rebecca? Well, no, I'm saying Rebecca because it's Jessica,
Rebecca
right?
Ferguson.
Rebecca Ferguson,
yeah.
She, in this, you see her go from, obviously she was always kind of shifty. Even Paul's dad in the first part, he's like, you see that scene where he's like, "Will you protect my son?" He's like, "I'm not asking his mother. I'm asking, the Bene Gesserit." He's like, he knows that she's been working in the shadows and doing stuff. And
I will say the twist at the end of this, I didn't know Dune. This is my first experience with Dune. That surprise at the end about who she is kind of blew my mind.
What surprise? Oh, right, of course. I'm thinking like about like no, yeah. Or who she's who Grandpa is.
Wait, yeah.
Yes,
Can we
who
talk
Grandpa
about
is.
that for a second? Because that did have me a little bit. I feel like it was just really fast and randomly.
They did kind of throw it in there
really fast. You kind of touch on my second issue with the movie in general, is the fact that it is a lot of really important things are really fast.
That is true. Yes,
but other than that, like, we've touched on the two issues I had with the entire film.
Well, that was one thing that couldn't really see. I was thinking about it as well, and I'm like, comparatively, why did that feel so jarring? You know, it's a big reveal, but they couldn't really set that up in the first part without actually spoiling it, you know? Mm-hmm. So it's like, it was one of the few things in the second part that wasn't set up in the first part, you know? Mm-hmm. So I feel like that could have played a part in making it a bit more jarring. So that's just what I thought.
Bryce, you haven't had much to say about the character.
Sorry, I feel like I've been talking too much. Yeah.
Oh no, you're good.
I'm like half just kind of listening because I feel like I watched a totally different movie from you guys, and half I lost track of where we're actually talking about on this.
We're still kind of just dissecting character.
Yeah, I guess so.
We're on the second category, and it's already been 30 minutes.
No, yeah, I was just kind of listening. You guys are making me feel like I watched a totally different movie, but yeah, it's fine. No, I'm just character. I know we haven't been saying it, but I gave it a perfect score.
Same.
Paul's character arc throughout this entire movie is just amazing. I loved watching him from the first movie did a good job of kind of characterizing him as a child. Like he's getting used to learning the politics of his family and how that works within the bigger world outside of just the Atreides house. Yeah. And they really set that up really, really well. And that's why, like you guys keep saying, the payoff of this movie was the first movie and all that setup. Mm-hmm. And so this one, I mean, obviously we start out with him learning to be a Fremen, which was a really good section of the movie. And I thought they handled that pretty well. Then it turns into, okay, now he's starting to learn about the struggle between, okay, am I going to fight for just the Fremen, and just be another part of that, be one of them. Not, I don't want to be this Messiah. But then there is that kind of, I'll get to Jessica in a second. Oh my gosh, I loved her. But then he does have his mom on the other side once she kind of comes into her. I don't know if full potential is the right word phrasing for it, but it's this tug of war going on in his heart. He kind of knows like there's a decision to be made here, and he's really struggling with it. And that's what I love most about this movie. It's just the mystery behind all of it. I don't know anything about Dune. I don't know how it ends. Or anything leading up to it. And so I'm here for the ride, just like any other newcomer. And even getting into the end when he finally does, like you guys said, take a drink from the water of life. I think that's my favorite version of Paul in this entire movie, because again, there's the mystery behind. Yeah, he knows stuff now.
And
one thing I've noticed in all these movies is you get the flash forwards. You always get this flash forward. It's like always hinting at something. And I noticed that same thing where in the first movie he turns around, a mask comes off, and it's him. And in this one, it's actually Zendaya. I also remember from the first movie we had a ton of flashbacks about Jameis being his friend, but he dies in the first movie, and we don't get him at all in this movie except for the beginning. And so I'm starting to pick up that, okay, he's getting these visions, but clearly decisions are being made that are altering what his visions are. And I love that mystery. I love that you always kind of get that twist if you notice some of like, oh crap, like there's stuff going down and this is clearly leading somewhere. And I love that I don't know what's going on like with those decisions. And especially with the ending of this movie, oh my gosh, there's so much that can go down. And I love the political side of it, just how the houses interact with each other, especially when the Emperor comes in. So Paul's character arc through this entire movie is perfection. I loved every moment of it. I was invested. I'll rant about Jessica a little bit here because she was just phenomenal. I love her.
Rebecca Ferguson was insane, man.
Oh my gosh, she was amazing in that role, and that's more of the acting. We'll get there eventually.
I hated her in part one because she whispered every line, but part two was
that's
so
an
much
acting
better.
issue, Tim. It's an acting issue.
It was.
No, I loved her character arc in this also. I love how she kind of is fully realized into who she really is. I love the mystery of the first movie and like, okay, she's doing some shady stuff behind the scenes, but you don't really know. You think you can trust her. you know it's Paul's mom and that she loves him clearly, but there's just that thing that's off, and this movie just fully goes all in on that idea. And her transformation from after when she also drinks the water of life, from that point on, it's just like lights out. Jessica is just such a badass, honestly. Especially at the end, that cold line of like, you should have had faith. Like I was like, oh yes, tell her, Jessica.
They do an amazing job of positioning her where the entire time I was questioning, does she believe Paul is the chosen one?
That's true.
Or is she making him the chosen one?
And I'll get back to I'll probably could have covered that in the story, because like I'll get to that in direction. That's fine. Okay. Anyway, Stilgar, a standout character in this movie. I thought he filled the role of like, I don't want to say best friend, but like, mentor figure who becomes friend. But he's that guy who he just has all the faith. He knows that this is going to happen, which will get you in direction. Yeah. No, that's
Javier Bardem.
Javier Bardem's, the memes that have come out of him are also so hilarious.
The memes have been great.
They're also
as it was written.
As it was written.
And I'll get to some other people with the acting section, because I think that that shines more with some other characters. But yeah, all the characters were great. I did not dislike any of them in the role. Some had a smaller role, but they were all perfectly placed in this movie and served the role. And I'm sure some of them will grow more as we get into the third movie.
Yeah. So we were 5s across the board as far as character arc and characters. I have not seen that trajectory of reluctant Messiah done near as well as this story. And I don't know, I never wanted to read Dune until I saw this movie, and now I put it on hold from the library. But everybody and their mother also has it on hold. So
that's so true. Yeah.
I saw a meme of YouTubers who made Dune video essays, 4 years ago, years ago, and it's a thing from Scarface, where they're just on the phone and they're getting all the monies coming in, and and then one YouTuber was just like, "Yep, 100%."
Yeah. So our
just
next
got a million views out of nowhere.
Our next category is music and sound design, which
fantastic.
It's so good.
Come on.
Is there much of a discussion to it?
We can just chalk this one and move on.
Yeah, we already talked about Hans Zimmer, but you mentioned like how Hans Zimmer might sometimes shop stuff out to other people. The moment I knew it was him going into the movie, but I forgot about it. And then the moment that I was like, oh yeah, this is Hans Zimmer, is when he wrangles the sandworm and the guitar kicks in.
Yeah.
And I go, Hans Zimmer.
Oh, the theater just starts shaking from the speakers.
Oh yeah. I don't know if you guys, what format you watch in. I didn't get to see IMAX because in Chicago, the dumbasses in charge got rid of the one at Navy Pier.
Sounds like Chicago.
Well, yeah, that's the worst. That is actually the worst thing that's ever happened in Chicago. Was that happening? No, but
I saw multiple movies at that IMAX. That's
it was. I saw all the Star Wars in that one, and it was in every single. Upon rewatch for all the Star Wars movies. The score that I had in that theater was about 5 higher.
Yeah.
But. Yeah, the music in this, you could tell he was just so on hands with it. The guitar, all the choirs, different ladies screaming.
I looked it up, the soundtrack after this movie. I think the one at the very end, like right before the credits go on,
the track is called "Kiss the Ring."
Kiss the Ring. I'll be at the gym and I'll be listening to that.
I was just doing that yesterday.
Phenomenal.
You both sought it out. That to me, is a 5 on the soundtrack. When you seek it out after to listen,
it is.
And there are 2 things that I consider a 5 for soundtracks. One is that you seek it out afterwards to listen to on its own. The second thing that would be a 5 is the perfect example to me is Lord of the Rings, where each character or setting kind of has its own theme and it's recognizable. Like, oh, this is Rohan. 100%. Oh, this is the Shire. Mm-hmm. This movie had both of those things.
Yeah.
This movie had character themes, and I want to go listen to it again.
Leitmotifs, I think is what they're called. Leitmotifs are like the themes.
Yeah.
So House Atreides, that's where the bagpipes start coming in, and I love that's
So
when
good.
that part where Gurney is coming and attacking the Batista. Forget his character. Yeah, just Batista's in it.
Beast.
Yeah,
He doesn't say a thing in the first movie.
he's very again, his role is very diminished. He makes the most of it, I'd say. Like you can see in here, even though it's basically just screaming or getting shit on. Like you can tell he's just he's a big, huge guy, but he's scared and freaked out the entire time, especially
just wait till
with
we get to
Paul.
acting. I have a lot to say about Austin.
But the music.
I was going to bring that up. No one's touched upon Austin yet.
We're not there yet.
Don't worry. We'll
Hold it, Rich. We're talking about music.
I agree 100%. The ending theme of Kiss the Ring,
so good.
It builds. It builds on one of the ones that they introduced in this movie. One of the leitmotifs is the one of Paul and Chani, where it's kind of, you hear it in the beginning a couple times. It's kind of co-works as Paul's kind of human side coming out, and like his relationship with Chani, which is kind of representing the same thing. That scene after he takes the worm's blood and he's walking into the temple and the whole crowd of people are watching him, and he's not even sand walking, because he times it perfectly so that when the worm gets to him, it's too far away, and just like that music, you immediately it has his theme and House Atreides' theme just so warped and twisted, and you can immediately tell, like, just from the way he's walking, the music sells it so much that you're dealing with like a different character now. You know, you're not really dealing with the same person you've been with for almost 4 hours of content, you know. So they sold that so well. The music, we could go on a million things, but we all agree. So
there are so many scenes. One in particular I'm thinking of with Bautista, when Timothy Chalamet is just walking, and just the music is like it's oh my gosh,
yeah, so good. There's a million. I have so many different tracks actually on my phone from it. But yeah, I think the most famous for most people is going to be the one about the worms with the guitar. Yeah. Anytime you see the worm, it was the same in the first movie when it takes out the mining facility, and that's our first like glimpse at it. So good.
See, I was just curious if you think the that song you mentioned at the end, "Kiss the Ring," would be Hans Zimmer's best single song in a film.
That's impossible to say.
I still go back to his Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End soundtrack, where I don't think now is the best time. It's a 10-minute track. It is the like final battle where he proposes during the fight, but like that song is the epitome of Hans Zimmer to me, because it covers a range of emotions.
So many,
it's the same track. The same track plays when that forget whatever his name is, the main British bad guy is walking down the stairs as the ship is getting destroyed. It's just pure cinema.
Are we really going to forget Man of Steel's theme?
Well, that's what he's saying. Like, now, if you're talking about, I mean, look at go all the way back to The Lion King. When I was over in Ireland. I was over in Ireland for a year, doing my master's this past year, and one in Limerick, and at the college they had like a student radio, so I had like a little radio show, and I would do the soundtrack show, is what it was called, and I would invite different people on, and or just do it by myself, do a different composer, and for Hans Zimmer I had to break it up into different categories, because like different days, because he's done so much from the 90s onwards, like you mean The Dark Knight Rises, Man of Steel, Inception, Interstellar. I mean, but like you just keep naming them, or stuff that he had hands in, like the Pirates of the Caribbean. That was Claus Bennett who created the themes.
He did the theme,
but he took over and helped with the second and third movie.
He took it to the next level.
110%.
Claus did an incredible theme, And then
Right.
the final movie, the soundtrack on that final movie is
Yeah,
fantastic.
100%.
And we still haven't mentioned Hans Zimmer's most known, like probably his most important song of all time, which was "Video Killed the Radio Star."
Yeah, I worked on all that stuff.
he was in the band that was in the first music video to ever play on MTV.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
That's I covered that. I covered that as well. Like he is someone, and of course he was one of the first big time Hollywood composers to make the leap to video games. He did the theme for Modern Warfare 2.
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah.
See, we've talked about the music, but the other thing that's fantastic in this film is just the sound design. The
Right. Is that a different category?
It's
the
the same. It's untouchable. The sound design is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
We lumped the two together because sometimes you have movies with zero score.
Right.
Or with like zero musical score. And
No
so you
Country
got
for Old Men.
Yeah, that I was like Paranormal
Love that
Activity
movie.
has
So
no
good.
music.
The
you know,
Invisible Man.
Stilgar and Gurney going at it.
but the sound design is also fantastic. The sci-fi weapons I always go to, like Transformers has amazing sound design. I love the way Transformers sound.
Top
But
tier.
this movie sounds so cool. The weapons
so unique,
sound
too.
so cool.
Oh yeah.
But
When
also
it's
just
shaking
the-
your theaters as well, it sounds pretty
Yeah.
great.
But also just the use of silence in so many scenes when they're communicating with those hand signals, or the way the voice is used. It sounds so good.
There's
It sounds so good.
nothing out of place in terms of how it's engineered for any of the audio. Like it's mixed well. The first movie did have a bit of a problem of music. Usually when Rebecca Ferguson was talking, she would be talking and you couldn't
When
really
she was
hear it.
whispering.
Right.
Yeah.
But the music would be going and sound effects. They mixed it perfectly in this one.
When Rebecca Ferguson was dramatically whispering.
Yeah. The voice was used so well in this.
Whenever I see it,
I won't. Sorry, I won't. I'm probably going to have to go in a couple minutes. My sister's arriving, so I need to help her with her bags. Okay. But yeah, the one last thing I'll say, I appreciate you having me on. I could talk about this.
Sorry,
shit
you can't stay the whole time.
Oh, dude, I could talk about this shit for hours and hours and hours. Like I basically have been. I've been. Sorry,
we're not
Bryce.
even halfway.
Yeah, I feel like I've been talking way too much, but yeah, I just really appreciate it. The movie was outstanding. I'd love to talk again with you about this or something else any other time. Rich doesn't even have to be part of it anyways. You don't like it.
Get him out of here.
All right.
Yeah, but Tim, Bryce, it was great meeting you guys. Rich, it's good seeing you again.
Yeah, I'll see you later.
Whatever. And best movie ever? I think so. Yeah, for sure.
Whoa, bold.
No, I wouldn't.
All right.
Yes.
After of course, SpongeBob movie.
Oh, let's go.
Yeah, we'll have you on to talk SpongeBob. Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Yes,
Hey, John.
Before we jump into the next category, I want to tell you a little bit about Zencastr. When I was preparing for our 13 Nights of Halloween series, I was really searching for a way to streamline the process. I wanted a professional-looking setup to invite our guests to. I wanted quality audio and video recording, and I wanted the easiest way to release the episodes to as broad of an audience as possible. This is how I landed on Zencastr. It is now super easy to record a podcast with Zencastr. Just log in using your browser and start recording a high-quality podcast right away. Record studio-quality sound and up to 4K video with your guests. Feel a sense of zen knowing Zencastr's multi-layered backups ensure you always have your recordings in the highest quality, even if the connection is unstable. And speaking of audio quality, have you ever worried what you sound like? Zencastr's post-production process makes you sound buttery smooth. It automatically removes those ums and ahs in your recording. It removes those awkward pauses in conversation too. Set the podcast loudness and levels while reducing background noise with the click of a button. So if you are thinking of starting your own podcast or just want to streamline what you are already doing, go to zencastr.com/pricing and use my code AVERAGECUSTOMER
and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. That's average customer, one word. I want you to have the same easy experiences I do for all of my podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. So let's dive into the next category.
Shall we jump to the next category, which is editing and special effects?
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, let me open this one up, boys. I've been quiet this whole time.
You have been.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Again, I feel like, yeah, it's interesting. Good takes. Yeah, the editing special effects. I don't know if this is gonna be an unpopular opinion. These movies have the best special effects and editing I've seen in any movie, hands down.
Oh,
I will go as far to say it's better
I
than
thought you
Lord
were
of
going
the
to say
Rings.
it was bad. I was about to.
No.
Like,
It's
I
better
don't
than
know.
Lord of the Rings
No.
with editing and special effects. Like, I think it is perfection. Dennis and his vision. I know we can get to direction later, but I think his vision has everything to do with the editing, special effects as well. These movies are just stunning visual achievements for cinema. Like, I've never seen. This is basically Star Wars if Disney could get their crap together with all this crap, with all the money and time you have. You should be able to make something this good. Mm-hmm. This movie stands out above any movie. Every single shot is, I mean, it reminds me of Zack Snyder in a lot of ways. I'm a huge Zack Snyder fan for his visions and how he shoots his movies too.
Even if he can't always tell the best story.
Even if he can't.
Yeah, like we had very similar scores on Rebel Moon, which we didn't do an episode about. But like some of the stuff he does looks so good, but the story just isn't there.
Yeah.
But anyways,
I think everything from the landscape shots to even when the scale, the way he frames it really gives you a feel for the scale of this world and the universe that you're in. And the best example is obviously with the sandworms, like just the massive size of these things, and when they come on screen, you just feel it. And again, that even points back to the sound design and how that's handled too. That goes hand in hand with the editing. This movie is absolutely stunning. The editing is super well done. It's not choppy. It's very smooth, and you feel that's part of the story, and tells its own side of it. Yeah, I have no problem saying hands down that these Dune movies, most stunning visuals and special effects of any movie I've ever seen, hands down.
No, I'm definitely glad I couldn't see it opening weekend. That was my wife's birthday, and we had a whole bunch of stuff like scheduled. And I'm trying to like, hey, can we go see Dune 2? And she's like, I don't want to see that. And I'm like, you like space? Maybe you'll like this. Let's go. And it didn't work out. But I'm definitely glad I made it to the movie theater for this one, because it does change the whole perception of the film. So watching the first one on Max at home, you can get on your phone, you can scroll when you're bored, you can look away, whatever. This one was captivating to see on screen.
Fully immersive. Yeah.
Yes. And I don't, I would not disagree that these are the greatest special effects that I've seen. There was not a moment. Disney, like you brought up Disney, so I'm gonna be quick to jump on them.
Every time
they've got into this laziness of like, here's the edge of the set, and the rest of it's CGI.
Yep,
and you can see it in every shot. Right? Yes,
it looks so bad.
It's bad. It gives everything. So like, it was cool in the first season of Umbrella Academy when they did that, and it gave the season a stage-like feel. It was part of the story. But Disney's gotten to the point where that stage-like feel has detracted from the storytelling. This never once had that stage-like feel. This felt like I was on another planet covered in sand with insane storms. Mm-hmm. The only thing that I would even complain about, and it's just personal preference, it's not execution, so I still had to give it a perfect score, is I hate not being able to see things. And so sometimes when the sand would blow in and obscure everything, I'm like, I hate the sand. I want to know what's happening. But it looks so
good with with that one scene where Paul's walking that like through
That's
the sand
so
with his hood
cool.
up, like that.
That was, like,
Come
one
on,
of my
that was
favorite
like
scenes. Yeah.
totally
good shots.
necessary.
There were some good shots, but some of the times I noticed it more with the first movie than the second one when like the sand would obscure action. I'm like, come on. I don't want I want to see the action, but like that is not a criticism of the construction. That is like it's done so well. Personal preference, I want to see it, but I get it. You're on a world of sand. Sand flies around in the air and gets cloudy. It makes perfect sense. Like the sandworm scene is so sandy. It's ridiculous, but it doesn't look fake ever.
No,
Right.
not
It's
at
very
all.
grounded, and that's what makes it
Yes.
like, even though you might not like it, like it's what grounds the movie and makes it feel real at the end of the day, and makes you feel like you are part of the world.
It was
Mhm.
thrilling. It
Yeah,
was thrilling,
exactly,
honestly. Like,
right.
even though I'm like, man, I can barely see what's happening, it's still super cool.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
People are saying this movie is an experience. It's not a film, and I'm like, well, it's a film. But I could see what you're saying. It definitely felt like an experience. I never thought in a million years that a guy riding on the top of a giant worm could be as epic as it was.
Exactly.
Like,
Right.
just when it's coming in, when they're like, pick a big one, and then it starts coming, and Stilgar, he's just like, not that big. Like, you
Yeah.
actually-
Yes.
you feel that. And just the fact that
Mhm.
Paul was able to do it, like, I knew as being in the audience, like, he was obviously going to do it, but like, just to see that
I did it.
happen.
I was on the edge of my seat.
Yeah, I was only 20 minutes in, on the edge of my seat, man.
Yep. There were a couple times. I will say the first movie, I was never like on the edge of my seat. I was watching it. This movie at multiple points had me going, what's going to happen? How is this going to play out? I've never read the books. Like I said, the political intrigue was enough for me to stay away from books because that makes for a really boring read. But now I want to. I want to read it again and get a better understanding, because even though this movie is being praised, I've seen a lot of people who are Dune fanatics
Disappointed.
talking about how much is left out.
Yes.
And that blows my mind. So
I heard like Dune Part 2 in the movie spans like a few months, whereas in the book it's like a handful of years. Like Paul and Chani have a son.
In the book it's 2 years.
Yeah.
In the book it's 2 years. In the movie it's about 6-ish months by the end. So book comparison, from what I've understood and why I want to read it, at the end of Dune Part 2 movie, Paul should have had a son and his sister would have been born already.
Yeah.
And none of those things happen in the movie. And I'm fine with making those jumps for the purpose of a story.
Let's say you can't please everyone.
No, exactly. It did not detract from
it's
my
not Twilight,
enjoyment.
So let's calm down, guys.
We got Renesmee here. At the end.
Exactly.
It didn't detract from it, but that is one of the things that like I want to go back and learn more about this world. Because I've seen a lot about that, just the differences. But for the most part, Dune fans seem to like this movie. Overall, they like it as a movie. They understand the changes. They're not like, well, they fundamentally changed this. None of that is true. So that can lead right into our script conversation.
I was going to bring up the script next.
This is where I docked it. One
line,
boy,
though,
here we go.
is "May thy knife chip and shatter."
Woo!
Can go down in history. Like I mean, I don't know. I feel
That's
like
a phenomenal
it is.
line.
And then even Austin Butler like repeated it back to him.
Yes.
Like I'll get into that with acting soon.
Oh yeah.
But no, that line in general, fantastic.
So did that line have an origin in the film, or was it just at the end?
I'm pretty sure they said it in part 1.
I thought they did too, but
it was in the first one also. He said it at the end when he faced Jameis.
Okay,
that was a parallel.
Yeah, it's a parallel.
That was a match, and then
Yeah, I gave it a perfect. I guess I'll talk about the political side of thing. I don't understand the hate for the political side of this movie. Like, I get the book. I don't think I've heard a single book fan complain about this movie. In fact, they've praised it for being as accurate as it has been. Mm-hmm. And I think they're just. I'm going to take a gamble that they're a little bit more forgiving and understanding. Like, it's a movie. You can only do so much, and reading a book compared to a movie is two separate types of media. And to what Tim said earlier, like I've heard the saying, like these books are unadaptable because the way that they were written was very much from the basically the headspace of the characters. So you were getting a lot of like inside thoughts of these characters as like these things were playing out. You can't really adapt that to a movie. Like that's just, it's not impossible with like one or two characters, but like with all these characters and all the threads and storylines going on, you just can't make that happen. That's impossible to do
without constant narration, which would totally take you out.
Which was the first movie in the first place, which it was a lot of narrating and just and world building at that point. I think the political side of these movies has been handled as good as they could definitely do it. The first one really does handle that for the first, I would say, half of the movie before like the big attack happens. I feel like it's pretty straightforward. It makes sense. The Atreides were asked to take over, for the man, why am I losing the name of the
Harkonnens?
Harkonnens, yeah. And then, the Emperor comes in, is like, you can actually, go take that back and kill them. Like, it makes sense. It's about power at the end of the day, which is what, seems like all politics at the end of the day is about power. It's straightforward. I don't think they had to go any deeper than that necessarily. They probably could have, but then again, you're going to lose a lot of the audience because a lot of people don't like the political side of stories. I'm a fan of it personally, but I appreciate that they kept it simple. And even into this one, they kept it very straightforward also. In fact, even lighter than the first one, which I think plays well into the other side of the script, which was the religious side of it. I thought the religious side was awesome. I thought it really played well to both sides of the people who are just like diehards. They'll do anything because they believe so much in this thing that could save them or whatever. And then you have the other side that's very much more,
which is where the memes have come from.
Right, exactly.
To see like Paul farts as is written.
And what's so great about it is I really did find myself siding more with the people who were faithful that, Paul was, their savior than the other people, because it almost felt weird because like, oh, they really believe that it should be someone within their own group. Like, it was almost like, it kind of goes back to what I love about these movies. Like, you can't really tell like who exactly you're rooting for. You have an idea, but there's flaws. And I love flawed character. I love flawed ideas that you can kind of pick apart. And then you see the tug of war happening. You can see their ideas being challenged throughout the entire movie. And that, I feel like that makes just great characters and great scripts that you can just watch that build as the movie goes on. You see all sides of it, and it just creates conflict that's meaningful and it has its weight outside of all the action that's happening in the wars and etc. So I thought the script was perfect. Honestly, I was intrigued by every aspect. The religion part of it really taking center stage over the politics, obviously. And I thought they handled it flawlessly. I'm so invested in the story since the first movie. I'm so excited to see the next one, honestly, and get the end of this story.
I think it's interesting you gravitated to, I think you could kind of put any watcher of this movie into these two categories of, did you believe Paul was the chosen one? Right. Or are you someone who is skeptical? I found myself being skeptical the entire time.
And I'm not saying I wasn't skeptical. Like I said, I felt myself siding more with like the guys who had faith, because I was it was just between all the pushing and pulling, I kind of just leaned that way. I'm not saying I believed it. And again, that's another part why the script is so great and his characters, because they never upright tell you if he is or not. There's a lot of contradiction in his actions, and based on the visions that he's having, that you see those parallels and like, maybe
even by the end of the movie. Yeah,
yes, even especially by the end of the movie. I feel like it's
totally open for
the end of the movie is supposed to be as contradicting as it is, because you just don't know. And that's what's so great about it.
So going off what you just said, in that final fight with Austin Butler, I thought Paul was going to die.
Oh, yeah.
I thought he was stabbed. I was like,
I thought he was too.
He wasn't the chosen one. Like, he's going to die here. Like, what is going to happen?
I was too. I will say, so I put it into script because I haven't read the book, so I can't know if it was actually in the story or not. But I took off one point for heart. And I feel like while there was that emotional relationship with Chani, I didn't feel emotionally invested in any of the characters the way I have in other films. And I've been clear across this podcast from the beginning, like I'm an emotional movie watcher. I cry at probably 75% of the films that I watch. And this one evoked 0 tears. It did not happen. I was not, while I was invested in the story itself and the execution, I was not emotionally invested in any particular character's plight. And that was, I don't know, that is something that I don't know if it was a problem with the script. I don't know if it's not in Frank's book. What I have heard overall from Dune fans is that it is not very character focused. It is kind of world focused.
That's fair.
And in that regard, great movie. Like I love it, but I'm not emotionally invested in it. And that is,
sorry,
well, that is one thing that I do wonder, like if I have watched part 1 and part 2 6 times, do those things come through for me in later watches that I'm suddenly like, I pick up the little emotional bits here and there. The part that I loved, I was going to mention it in directing, but this was the part that had the most emotion to me in the entire thing, was at the very end when everybody bows to Paul. And there is a single shot of him and his new political bride. And then just a little bit outside of that is Chani. And it's the 3 of them. And that single shot is my favorite shot of the entire movie. And a movie filled with shots that are fantastic to look at, this one carried emotional weight. And that is the one moment in this movie that I was like, that was not just beautiful to look at, but I felt that.
Yeah.
And that was the one moment that I felt it. And so I think that is where, like, the script is great for all those reasons that Bryce said. The political intrigue, they do an excellent job of taking something that is boring to a lot of people, and they made it interesting. This movie made me want to know more. And Bryce's other point, I forget what it was.
The religious problem.
Yes, it's fascinating. They do a great job of all of these other things. The one thing I am missing is because
Crying.
this gets yes, honestly, the emotional investment in it is you get the comparison to the Lord of the Rings a lot, and you know, just like Star Wars, I don't cry at Star Wars. I'm not emotionally invested in Star Wars quite as much. But with Lord of the Rings, there's little scenes with Merry and Pippin that carry emotional weight. There's a lot of emotional weight to what happens throughout Star Wars that is significant. And I didn't feel that with Dune. And that is why, like, one of the 2 points that I took off of the score is that emotional weight that I didn't feel. Outside of that, like, the script is great. I think the script is great. Now, Rich, you've been
I got one scene.
Rich. Get him, Rich.
It is literally at the end, before he fights Austin Butler, he looks at Zendaya and he's like, "I will love you until my final breath." And then
it felt
3 minutes later, he looks at the Emperor and he was like, "I will take your daughter in marriage." And it shows Zendaya's face. I'm sitting there like, okay, like, I don't know. I've seen a lot of people getting that feeling of like, oh my gosh, this is so sad. I was kind of sitting there like, what? Like,
I was annoyed.
No,
quick.
I think that's supposed to be a fair reaction, though, to that point. Like, I don't think that moment is supposed to feel forced, and I'm sorry if that's how you felt about it, honestly, but I think the reaction to what is supposed to be more of a reaction than I felt more of like a gut punch, like, because I kind of felt like that was coming. And I don't know the story, but like I kind of felt like, oh crap, because he drank the water, like he kind of sees the visions, he knows what he has to do, kind of thing. But I think the reaction of what is I think that's warranted. I feel like that should be more of a reaction than what I felt honestly, which was bittersweet. Like, oh crap, he's gonna make a choice here. You know.
So
Yeah.
I didn't think Paul's choice was the forced part. I thought Chani's reaction was the forced part. And that's because he says throughout the movie that she will understand. She will understand. He saw it in his vision. She will come around. And it's clear from that line, I will love you until my dying breath. Okay.
Some
good line. But then he turns around and makes a political maneuver.
Yes.
And her reaction was that of a junior hire who can't comprehend that there are bigger things in play than their relationship. That is where I had the issue with it.
He didn't have to choose it though, man. He could have chosen her.
Well, but also all up until that point, she's been someone who's been very closed off. Like, I feel like that's part of her character arc. And I'm not, again, Chani isn't necessarily my favorite character of this movie. She's definitely, I mean, she has her role, and I think it'll only grow as the movies go on. But that's kind of part of her character arc, is that she finally did open to someone that she thought she trusted, this outsider who came in, and she slowly grew on. Like, you could say, yeah, maybe it is junior high-ish, but also if you love someone and they just kind of in front of you just be like, hey, I'm going to take this girl as my wife. Like, you tell me you wouldn't have a reaction that's like in your heart? Like,
yeah, man. Yeah.
Maybe her facial reaction isn't what you liked, but I mean, come on, I would even be like, ow.
I think it is more, it makes her appear more immature. Because if you are in a mature relationship like that, like understanding that those two characters are truly in love, then she would be understanding of the sacrifice that he has to make to better the people.
But she doesn't know, because Paul never tells her anything. She's unaware.
That's a good point.
She doesn't know anything at all. And he walks up to her and is like, I'll love you till my dying breath. Turns around, I want to marry you. Like, if I'm out the loop, I don't know. I feel like I'd have the same reaction. Like, yo, bro, what's up?
Hey, I gotta bring this up. I gotta take off in 11 minutes at 6:30.
Man, we gotta get this thing rolling.
Okay, we gotta wrap this. We gotta move this along.
Yeah, let's go acting. Let's go to acting then.
Austin Butler.
Fantastic.
Yeah, let's talk. Yeah, Austin Butler's the only one we should be talking about here.
Austin Butler. Okay,
voice,
first of all,
he didn't do the Elvis voice. It was
I know it was awesome.
In a way, though, I was kind of thinking it's almost like he's doing the Elvis voice, but like manipulating it to sound like
I got some Southern in it.
It was. Yeah, you could definitely hear the Southern just a little bit at the beginning.
Timothy Chalamet impressed me.
Yes,
he carried some of the more serious scenes better than I thought he would, but I definitely thought Austin Butler stole the show.
Oh, totally. Or at least he was the biggest surprise of the whole movie.
Yeah, anytime he was on screen, he was captivating.
Yeah,
he was incredible. So
when he takes his brother and makes him kiss my shoe. I was like, what?
Dirty, absolutely dirty.
It was nasty, and I loved it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. My biggest worry was Timothy kind of stepping into that role of like, okay, we got to see like the quiet, more child side of his character. How is he going to carry the more mature leader, messiah portion? And I totally agree with you. I thought he did really, really well.
Yes.
And that was really my only worry of the movie. It's like, I don't know if he's really a lead character. I bought it after this movie, honestly.
Yep. I would totally agree.
I never thought Timothy Chalamet could like actually yell, like scream.
Yeah.
Like, you know how like in Avatar, who's Jake Sully? Sam Worthington. He's like known.
I hated that movie, so I don't know.
Oh, come on. He's known to have a good scream. Like you hear it in Avatar, you hear it in Clash of the Titans. Whereas this one, it wasn't like a scream, like he's just yelling, but more so like when he's giving the speech, and even when he's speaking the Freeman language, which I actually looked up is an actual language, which is pretty cool. Like the author made it or something like that, but I don't know.
Like
I was pleasantly
he commands your presence. Like he commands your attention and like your presence as he speaks. At that, I agree. Totally nailed it there.
The other just shout out real quick. I loved Javier Bardem.
Yep, Javier did.
He was
also
so likable.
Rebecca and Javier, they were both great, honestly.
There really wasn't anybody super weak in this film.
There wasn't a weak spot. I agree.
So
there's some actors like Yeah, there's some actors like, why did you pay them so much to have such a small role? But I guess if you have, screw you money, then yeah, go for it. Why not? Let's throw Anna Taylor-Joy in for 5 seconds.
Oh, well, going back,
that is set up for sequels. That is definitely
but
set up
it's
for
still
sequels.
funny. Like, you had her in for 5 seconds, and like the third movie hasn't even been greenlit technically. So
you know what? She made more in that 5 seconds than I will make in a year.
Yep, exactly.
Going back to the Emperor, though, it's not that he was bad at acting or anything like that. It just feels like they could have gotten anyone else and it still would have been fine. Like,
I was happy with Christopher Walken. I
was fine with it.
I like Christopher Walken.
I also
just
love
kind of
Florence
like,
Pugh, but she was a very minimal part.
I'll give you that too. That is true.
I think that is set up for future. So we're 5s on the acting. Jumping into the direction.
Okay, I got something with this. All right.
Okay.
Again,
so going into this movie,
we're trying to wrap this up before you go.
I didn't realize that this was going to be the ending of the first book. I thought it was going to be part 1, part 2, part 3, and that would encapsulate the first book. So watching Dune part 2, the whole time I'm thinking like, the direction of this movie is amazing. They're never gonna be better than this though. And it's a weird thing to be critical of because the movie is fantastic, but I'm just worried that in the future, like the next movie or whatever that they come out with will not be as impactful as this movie was. And if you can call that direction, like overall direction of this movie, fantastic. Leading up and going into the next one, that's where I'm like, I mean, very open-ended. Like there's a lot of things they can do, but this was like the rebellion,
were going
war,
to war at the end of this movie.
Yes.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not the holy war, baby, and that's what we're here for.
See, I don't know anything about it.
I mean, either. I'm here for the ride, baby.
Yeah,
I'll touch on it really quickly just because this was where I got the one score I didn't knock. And honestly, I could easily give this a 5 just as much as a 4. I was just being nitpicky because, I can tend to get critical sometimes. But the one knock I have on this movie for the direction is this movie just did not feel nearly as smart it was just a hair less smart and witty compared to the first one. Like this one felt a little bit off with the Harkin, that's their name, right?
Yes, the Harkonnens.
I felt like they weren't quite as like intelligent as they were shown to be in the first movie. The first movie had them. I felt like they were much more of a threat in the first movie compared to this one. They felt a little smarter and more intelligent, I guess. Not to say they weren't in this one, but it just felt like some things that happened of where they kind of got like they were just constantly getting beaten down. I was like, I kind of felt like you could have been just a little bit more smart about this. I kind of wanted to see a back and forth between the Fremen and the Harkin. And so this movie just kind of felt a little less smart than the last one. But again, it's such a nitpick, honestly, that I could easily give this a 5 and call this a perfect movie still. So that's the only reason I knocked it.
I'll kind of give you that. Like in the first one, it was like the Harkonnen were like this unstoppable force.
Yeah.
Whereas this one, it was really them taking the Harkonnen down. And it seemed like not necessarily easy, but a lot easier.
Right. Like they were just getting wiped by Fremen. And
I was so disappointed in the final battle. I'm just going to be honest. I loved everything.
Gosh.
I thought it was beautifully shot. I thought it was like, I loved the visual style that Denis went for. The Harkonnen home planet was brilliant. The transition from like stepping outside into the black sun when it was black and white.
Yeah.
Amazing. But I will say, like, I gave the direction a 5, but my biggest like disappointment was that final battle took like 5 minutes. It was like, here's the plan.
So cool.
Here's the plan.
True.
It was cool, and that's why I'm disappointed. I wanted it to be half an hour long.
Yeah,
I wanted it to keep
that's
going.
fair, I guess.
I will say that.
I wanted so much more of it. We got one shot of Zendaya like flipping over people and stabbing them, and then that was it for like the hand-to-hand combat. And I'm like, are you serious? Now we're storming the throne room. That's like ultimately all of my complaints about this movie come from the fact that I want a longer cut of it.
Yeah.
I want more of it. It felt rushed in scenes. And that is the only complaint I have about it. I want more because it was so well done.
that moves into the next one, the it factor of it, of what it was. It was great.
Yeah.
You want more, but that's not a criticism. That's just, we want more of this. And
that's how great these movies are.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
it
agree. Does, some of the things at the end happen so fast. After all of that setup, the ending happens so fast that I'm like, I would have liked a little bit more there. And that's my ultimate complaint. So like the it factor, I think we don't need to spend a whole lot of time between the popcorn buckets making their way around the internet.
Those are bad. Those are weird.
They're bad. I hear they have definitely helped people enjoy the movie more.
I'm not gonna, no comment.
No comments.
The memes going around, like this movie has and it is arguably, but most likely the biggest release we will see this year.
Oh yeah.
So this movie is an easy 5 on the it factor, but my ultimate like enjoyment, it was a 9 out of 10. It was gripping. I was on the edge of my seat for many moments. Walking away from it, I wanted more out of it, and that's why I ultimately went down to a 9, which is the smallest of complaints about it. Like, oh, it went from a 10 to a 9, but like, yeah, there were some things that I would have liked to see a little bit more, but my enjoyment level is super high. I had a great time with this film. I want more of it. It made me want to read the book.
Yeah. The only thing I'll touch on with the if factor is the I think these movies, maybe I'll touch on it at the end, but these movies I think are the next Lord of the Rings / Star Wars movies. I think we are right now in a special time in cinema with these movies that they are easily the biggest thing that's happening in Hollywood. Like, I don't think there's anything close to them right now. I think these will go down as Lord of the Rings, Star Wars level of a trilogy. I don't know if it's going to be just a trilogy. I hope there's more, but like the it factor is a 5 easily. The biggest movie of the year. I mean, that's an easy say. It's the Oppenheimer of last year. I don't think any movies are really going to touch this one.
There's nothing on the schedule.
Yeah. That's why my entertainment was a 10 out of 10. I literally, as soon as I got home, I was raving to my wife about it for like 10 minutes straight. And I told her I literally could go watch this like literally for the next showing right now. I'm actually making plans to like try to go see it again tomorrow, honestly.
I'm going tonight.
I could go see
that's
this
why
again.
You have to leave, isn't it?
Yeah, that's why he's leaving. Yeah. These movies, I think if they continue down this path, I will have no issue saying, and this is mainly because I'm more of a sci-fi guy than a fantasy guy, and I didn't grow up with the Lord of the Rings. I could easily say, yeah, these are like Lord of the Rings good, and they will stand the test of time and be hailed as that good, I think. I fully believe that.
All right, Rich, give your final thoughts. So you can take off.
Going off of that, the only concern is I see this more as like the Dark Knight trilogy, where
interesting.
Very hot take.
So the third one's going to suck?
I did not. Okay, no. Here's my thing. I did not like Batman Begins.
Okay. Oh, get out of here!
Sorry,
get out of here!
This is what John was talking about.
No.
Shut your mouth and go watch Dune. Get out of here!
I can talk on that for so long, but okay, listen to me. It's kind of the same essence. Where Batman Begins, not a bad movie. Dune 1, not a bad movie. Very, very good, entertaining. Sets up the second one. Dark Knight versus Dune Part 2. Fantastic, absolutely amazing. Third one, Dark Knight Rises, I personally enjoy. It's not the best. It's not better than the second one. Okay?
It's enjoyable,
and I think that it's gonna be the same story. I feel
until
like
you consider the fact that these police were apparently trapped underground for 3 months and didn't grow a beard whatsoever.
Right. No, but if they make a third Dune, if they get the budget for it, which they most definitely will, I feel like it's gonna be a story of Paul's downfall. Of like him just abusing his power. Like, I feel like I've grown to like Paul, but they're gonna do something with his character that's not gonna make me like, unless Dennis or Denny somewhere else. Yes,
DV.
But yeah. I mean, I could be wrong. What if we go into the bigger war? What if it's more captivating than I can ever imagine. You know what I mean? So
I will say,
of little faith.
I think it's interesting they cast an actress who is older than Timothy to play his baby sister, but we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah.
I love Anya Taylor-Joy, so I'm here for the ride.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I overall, my final score was a 47, 3 points off for this film. I don't think that's bad. That puts it in the amazing category.
Yeah,
It's just short of being a perfect film for me. I had a hard time not giving it a perfect score, but ultimately there were some things that I want from it, and that's maybe part 3 solves those things. I don't know.
Oh, baby.
So, yes, sir.
Yeah, I gave it a 49 out of 50. Just a little bit there with the direction. I think I took 1 point off. Fantastic. Going to see it second screening tonight. I'm going to a bigger theater, louder. So I'm hoping, well, at least I hope. I don't know. Marcus cinemas are kind of hit or miss. It's not like their super screen is not like IMAX.
Which one are you going to?
Marcus Cinema.
Which?
Oh, they call it the super screen.
Are you still in the Arlington Heights area?
No, actually, I'm in Green Bay. So yeah.
Oh, okay. So never mind. I wouldn't know.
Yeah,
which
no
one.
AMC.
Wisconsin.
Yeah,
no AMC.
Got the cheese, but
I don't have an AMC here either. We have a local 2-screen theater, but that's still where I saw this. So
yeah. I miss the AMCs. I miss the Randhurst AMC, but yeah, we'll see. It was a fantastic film. I was happy with everything about it. I can't wait to see it again. Maybe I'll have different thoughts tonight seeing it. I don't think I'm gonna dislike the movie. I think it'll only just grow. But yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah, 49 out of 50 for me. I could easily make it a 50 out of 50. I might be in this group the one who's like fully just all in on this series. Honestly, I really don't want to complain about this movie because everything I do have to complain about, they're nitpicks because I force myself to try to be critical of movies I love. Even The Dark Knight for me has like things I nitpick because I don't like it as much, but this movie's perfect. I like the ending actually.
The ending of Dark Knight.
I enjoy it. I think the ending's fine. It can get clunky, but yeah, yes. I think these movies. The first one's amazing. I think the first one for me may just barely edge out this one, but it's hard to say that either one does because they're two separate movies that go hand in hand. And just go see the movies. They're all so good.
Yeah,
so good.
This movie is, you've heard it said a dozen times. Rich, you gotta go. You want to say your last words and then take off?
I do. Yes. No, I am so grateful to have been able to have been part of this. Fantastic film. I really enjoyed it. I'm going to see it tonight. We'll see how it goes. I'll probably be texting you, Tim. But yeah, no, thank you guys very much. Hopefully there's a part 3 and hopefully we can talk about that then and just take it from there. So
thanks for being a part of it. Good conversation as always.
Yeah.
So your take this time was actually in line with everyone else's.
It was. Okay, when part 3 rolls around, or if we do a review for part 1, which I think you guys already did, but if you didn't and you want to do one, I will definitely take part in that and just...
I want to go back and do a review of David Lynch's 1983.
Oh no, I can't sit through that. I don't know, man.
That's a rough one.
I heard there's a 3-hour cut on YouTube streaming for free where somebody like added the scenes that were cut from it and they redid the special effects in it. I'm going to watch that and I'll let you know. But if you want to know the world, I got to fully immerse myself in it. So I'm doing it. But Rich, thank you for joining us.
Yeah,
have a good time watching it tonight.
I appreciate it. Have a good one. Bye.
Yep. Okay. So yeah, I think I was 47. You said you were 49?
Yeah, 49 out of 50. Same as the first one, actually.
Yeah, I think we're both pretty clear in that, like, you've seen other people say it. You've seen it on Instagram. You've seen it on YouTube, whatever. Mm-hmm. But go see this movie.
It's been impossible to find someone who doesn't like this movie, honestly. I can't find anyone at all.
So the only people, I have not seen anybody who saw it that disliked it. Mm-hmm. I've seen people who are like, sci-fi is not my thing and haven't gone. Mm-hmm. And that's understandable. Honestly, I've seen this compared. It was called hard sci-fi by somebody. And I have to agree with that.
That's probably fair.
Because it is very hard sci-fi. It feels, there were multiple moments that I definitely got the 70s, like sci-fi origins, the basis of what we know as sci-fi now is in this film. And if you're not a sci-fi fan, that's probably hard to swallow. So I can understand that. If you're not a sci-fi fan, go see it with somebody who is, maybe, but at least for the spectacle, this is probably the best movie you're going to see on the screen in 2024.
Oh yeah, hands down. I don't think there's a single movie that'll come close, honestly.
Godzilla vs. Kong is gonna like crush this film. I'm just kidding. That movie looks ridiculous, and so I'm here for it.
Oh my gosh!
Like Godzilla vs. Kong, the first one was not my favorite Godzilla film, and this one looks to have doubled down on the camp. And I don't know how I feel about that.
It looks so bad. You're going to have to drag me into a theater probably to watch that.
Oh, I'm going to see it just being the Godzilla diehard that I am. But
totally. I still need to see Godzilla 1. Though, is that the recent
Godzilla
one?
Minus One, yeah. Fantastic.
I still need to check that. I still have it on my list to watch. I'm just trying to plug through all these movies.
Oh, that movie is probably one of my top movies of 2024. That movie
I heard
is
it's amazing.
Insane. It's so good that Godzilla... But I've seen, anyways, we're not talking about Godzilla.
I know, yeah. We're hour 30, man. We drug this one out.
I was about to dive into a whole Godzilla spiel about how I need both Godzilla just destroying everything on screen and Godzilla Minus One.
Yep,
but exactly. This movie is art.
Oh,
and easily, I think that is the biggest reason to encourage anybody to go see this film. We live and exist in a day and age where movies are made to capitalize on profit.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie is not that.
No, not at all.
This movie is made with a vision. This movie is made with a purpose. And it is clear from part 1 through the end of part 2 that this movie is something different, and it is worth seeing. It is worth supporting. Go see it for the art alone. You may not, at the end of the day, you may be able to acknowledge that this was art, but it might not be your type of art. It might not be the picnics in the grassy field that you love, but it is art nonetheless. And it is hard to name movies in the last 5 years that are truly art. This is one of them. Oppenheimer was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, Godzilla Minus One was art for me. That movie was fantastic. But go support the art when it hits the theaters. And I think we're seeing that trend overall with movies, is that people are less interested in the cash grabs and more interested in the purposeful storytelling and art films. And that's why this film is going to be significant for years to come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ditto.
Okay. Is that all we have?
I sure hope so.
We went for an hour and a half.
I'm trying to shake off the rust over here, and we're going way more than we used to.
we are. I have to make dinner. I'm starving. But Bryce, it was good to have you back with us.
Yeah, I'm excited to get back into these a little bit. I know this year's a little rougher for movies, but
the box office sucks this year.
I know. Hopefully life slows down a little bit. I'd love to get back into a groove with these again. But yeah, I'm excited. Hopefully there's some more good movies coming out.
We've got a bunch of, the biggest releases, 2 of them are this month is the biggest one for the year.
Yeah.
With Dune 2, Godzilla, and Ghostbusters all this month.
Yeah. There's also Spaceman on Netflix that I saw.
Spaceman. I don't have Netflix anymore because they cracked down on that, if you're not on the same Wi-Fi stuff. So screw Netflix.
Well, guess we can't review that one.
I might do a 1 month of I want to see Rebel Moon Part 2, even though Part 1 was just good.
Director's Cut's coming out though too.
Wait. director's cut of Snyder movies are always the
You didn't hear that in the marketing? Yeah,
I did.
We're so off track to Dune now.
I did, but I didn't believe it.
No, it's true. It was a director's cut. I might watch it, honestly.
Okay,
well, I'll watch the movies.
I might wait for you. If you enjoy the director's cut, I might pay for a month of Netflix and watch it.
Thank you for trusting me.
Well, I know we feel similar about Snyder films, so
Yeah, we have a pretty
our reviews for Rebel Moon lined up about the same. Yeah, I was disappointed. Anyways, we're doing a lot of like. If I have a guest lined up, I let them pick the movie because this box office year is pretty rough. So I might shoot you a message, and if you want to hop in on those, absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, we might do an episode on Ghostbusters. We might do an episode on Godzilla. I'm not going to tell you we are because I don't know if they're going to be as good. So
doesn't mean we won't do an episode.
Yeah, it doesn't. We'll just hang out.
We gotta
and
talk
see.
about bad movies too. You know, like bad times.
We got some bad ones coming.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
All right, Bryce, it was good to have you again.
It was good to be back.
Yeah, we will see everybody next time.